Roman Reigns is about to return to ruin Seth Rollins. WWE has dropped some big hints on that being the case, just as they always do when the Tribal Chief is going to make his return. And we know that's going to happen sooner rather than later, based on what they've been teasing over the past couple weeks. This week on Raw, they dropped an even bigger hint that we're heading towards the big showdown between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins again, part whatever number this is for these two. When could it happen? Well, I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But for now, let's talk about how they've set this up with Roman Reigns making his return. This past week on Raw, you had Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, Bronson Reed, and Bron Breakker in the ring. And you had Heyman introducing all of these members, really talking them up like any great manager should do, going really over the top with some of the phrases that he used and everything. That's what Paul Heyman does, right? But he also finished up with Seth Rollins in terms of leading it up to the big punchline of this whole thing, which was having the fans acknowledge Seth Rollins. Not just, hey, here's the architect with the vision for the future, Seth Rollins. No, here is someone that the fans need to acknowledge, right? We know that's all about Roman Reigns and everything that's been going on between these two. A nice little subtle jab from the wise man himself. And so now that you've got that kind of in motion, you've heard Seth Rollins say some things about Roman Reigns that are clearly pointing towards him making his return. But again, the question is, how do you do it? You got to do it with the most impact. How can they do it to where Roman Reigns can come back and absolutely screw over Seth Rollins, the likes of which maybe we've not seen since Seth Rollins screwed over Roman Reigns when he hit him with a chair many, many years ago. Or even when Seth Rollins was the person who was Cody Rhodes' shield last year at WrestleMania 40. How can Roman Reigns get some payback, some vengeance on Seth Rollins for everything that he's done? Well, they've got some options here, as we know. Because when you look at the way this thing is going to set up, we know that Roman Reigns wants his revenge on Seth Rollins. And we know that one way to do that would be to make a big return next weekend at Money in the Bank, where Roman Reigns comes back, Seth Rollins in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Right now, the participants we know, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Penta. Does Roman Reigns come back there to screw Seth Rollins out of the opportunity to hold the briefcase once again? Because if there's anything Roman Reigns knows, he doesn't want to be around when Seth Rollins has that briefcase, because he's seen that in the past, how that can play out. But that, to me, is one way you can do it. One of the other ways you can do it is that when you have Seth Rollins win the Money in the Bank briefcase, that's going to give you the most drama, right? It's going to give you the suspense, knowing that everything that Seth Rollins has been saying, everything that Paul Heyman's been saying, about how it's really about the power for this new dangerous alliance that Paul Heyman has formed with these guys. Getting the championship is part of that, right? Because Seth Rollins has the history with his championship. He was the first champion of this new iteration of the World Heavyweight Championship. And now you've got Seth Rollins in a situation where if he wins Money in the Bank, he moves one step closer, but not in the traditional way. He holds this device that we know is really the most probably suspenseful device that WWE has ever created. And whether Triple H is a big fan of it or not, I saw one of the reports out there that Triple H was not a huge fan of the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is fine. Not everyone has to be. I think over the years, we've seen this thing evolved where there have been some good cash-ins, there have been some bad cash-ins, and it's been used, better than others in terms of some of the other things that WWE has done over the years. But with this, having Rollins holding that briefcase, every single time you see this group on Raw, on SmackDown, whatever, and that does give you the opportunity to play around with the idea that Rollins could show up on SmackDown and maybe potentially try to cash in on a John Cena, which right now maybe not make a lot of sense, or a Cody Rhodes, if Cody were to regain that championship at a place which we'll talk about in a second, could also feature the big blow-off match between Reigns and Rollins. But if you have Seth Rollins win the Money in the Bank briefcase, to me, what it does is it sets up a lot of fascinating scenarios. One involving even 2 nights later, where we know that Jey Uso is going to defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Gunther. The rematch between these two will take place 2 nights later in Phoenix after Money in the Bank. So if Rollins holds the briefcase there, and let's say Rollins is like, I'm not waiting, I want to cash in. Maybe Jey defeats Gunther, retains the title. A valiant effort from the babyface champion. And then here comes Seth Rollins where the numbers are against Jay. He's just had a hard-fought match against Gunther. Rollins goes to cash in. Now is the time. He's not waiting any longer. He had his chance a couple weeks ago. CM Punk screwed that up. Nothing's going to get in his way this time. And that's where we see how it plays out, right? They may have already taken out Punk. They may have taken out Sami Zayn. Whoever else could maybe play a role that has really been, right there front and center over the past little bit. But what Seth Rollins maybe could not be planning for is the big return of Roman Reigns, where Reigns is the person who decides, you know what, I'm not going to do this to save Rollins, from winning the Money in the Bank. I'm going to do it once he has that Money in the Bank and is every single day thinking that he is 100% guaranteed to become the champion again. This is the way he's going to do it. He's going to be the ultimate opportunist, right? Just like, Edge was back in the day. The heist of the century. Rollins is going to do it again. And then have all the power. Have everything this new group wants, right? That, to me, is when Roman Reigns should strike. That's when he should really take everything away from Seth Rollins and ruin everything that he wants in terms of that vision for the future. Money in the Bank doesn't need Roman Reigns. If you really look at it right now, you've got the big tag team match, right? Cody Rhodes made his return. He's going to team up with Jay to take on John Cena and Logan Paul. The two Money in the Bank ladder matches themselves sell the show. You don't need really Roman Reigns on this card to play, anything, to make this anything more than it already is. You're going to have huge developments either way here probably. But again, you could do it that way. You could have him come out. He's the person who screws over Seth Rollins. The other candidates to win that Money in the Bank briefcase right now, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, Penta. I think LA Knight is probably the top of that group. We still have a couple people who are going to qualify, and maybe they become more favorites. So if you look at it from that standpoint, to me, the biggest impact that you could have in this whole storyline is Roman Reigns screwing over Rollins when he thinks he's about to have his hands back on the championship. And that's the idea I like the best if they decide to go that route. Because again, also in that scenario, you have Rollins thinking he's cashing in likely on Jey Uso. Now that's assuming Gunther doesn't win it back, right? But if we say that it's all about getting to Rollins and Jey for that cash-in moment, well, Roman Reigns saving Jey Uso, you've got a story you can tell there. In terms of the history between those two, Reigns comes back. He's got scores to settle with all of these guys, with Rollins, with Breakker, with Reed. Remember, Reed was in the War Games match last year in November at Survivor Series. Obviously, Bron Breakker played a role in taking out Reigns and Punk, the Raw after WrestleMania. And the stuff with Rollins and Heyman speaks for itself. So, Roman Reigns has plenty of people to set his focus on as he makes his return here soon. And right now, he is scheduled for SummerSlam, it seems. The two-night SummerSlam, the first time ever it's going to take place in the 1st of August. And so from there, you're thinking, all right, let's say this plays out this way, right? Let's say that Roman Reigns does screw Seth Rollins out of this thing one way or the other, whether it's cashing in or whether it's simply winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. Roman screws him over one way or the other. We've got to get to the big match between the two, right? And you would think that this probably isn't going to be a straight-up singles match because we've seen those before with these two. If you're going to do this match again, there's got to be some stipulation involved, you would think. And so, where do you do it? Well, again, SummerSlam. 2 nights, first time ever. You would think right now that one of the headlining matches will be the rematch between Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Seems like we're heading in that direction after Cody made his return at Saturday night's main event. Other potential matches on the card, I can think of one right now. That could be your big one-on-one match between CM Punk and Bron Breakker. Although you've still got Bronson Reed out there. That's another possibility based on the way they've done this. So, could you have that as kind of one of those other big matches? I don't know if that's going to headline one of the nights, but that could be a match that you're going to have on the card. Again, the other logical headliner, if it's not a women's championship match, would be doing Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, maybe in some kind of stipulation match. And so, maybe that is what they decide to do. Could they do Hell in a Cell with these two? Could they do something else, right? This, to me, is one where if you're going to bring Reigns back in this manner, which you've got to think, like I said, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to be the way that I would like to see it, but it's got to be one of these couple ways now that they have put Rollins into the Money in the Bank ladder match. It's setting us up for something with Reigns and that opportunity that Rollins now has. It's just a matter of, is it going to be before he wins the briefcase or after he wins the briefcase? I think that's where we're headed towards. And again, they've been dropping these hints along the way, the acknowledging stuff, and knowing, too, the last time we saw Roman Reigns, he was down and out at the hands of this new dangerous alliance from Paul Heyman. The Paul Heyman who still has to get his from Roman Reigns. And with Heyman buying in on this vision that Seth Rollins has for the future, what better way for the original Tribal Chief to screw over everyone involved than by taking their opportunity at getting that championship, by taking the opportunity of getting the power that they want, taking it right away from him whenever he makes his big return to WWE for however many times it's been now over the past little bit. We've talked about Roman Reigns' returns a bit on this channel over the past year and a half, but this is one where I think you're going to have a huge impact no matter how Roman Reigns does it, and he's coming after Seth Rollins, and they're headed towards another big showdown in the long-running chapter between these two former Shield members. So, what do you guys think? Give me your predictions. Give me your booking. How would you do this? Give me some fun scenarios in the comments. Drop your comments below. How do you see this thing playing out with Roman Reigns' return? How would you do it? Let me know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Appreciate your support of the channel. I've got some fun stuff coming in, new videos here on the channel. Like you can tell, we're kind of doing a little bit of a rebrand here. We've got some fun stuff on the way. Appreciate you watching. Give me your predictions for Roman Reigns' return to WWE, and will he ruin the vision for the architect, Seth Rollins?